Good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your first breakout session of Empower. I'm Lindsay Griffin-Boylan from the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce. So happy to see all of you today and to start our first session in our finance track. So with that, just a couple housekeeping notes. Room exits are obviously in the back. If you need to leave at any point, especially for a phone call, please do so through the back. We have some staff in the room today. If you require any assistance, please see one of us. And we remind you to use the app. If you have any questions, you can do that directly from the app. So I know we already have some, so thank you for that. But on the app, you can find the session, and then we can ask our speaker questions as well as obviously we'll take them in person in the room today. Please note the session is being recorded for viewing post-Empower, and photos will also be taken. Remember to silence your cell phone, but please feel free to take pictures and post on social media using our hashtag Empower2023. And of course, when you leave, please take all your personal belongings with you after this session is over. If anybody needs the Wi-Fi access, I know we're having it's a little wonky right now, but it is the Empower 2023 with the same password, Empower 2023. So if anyone's having issues with that, please also let us know. So now to kick off our first session, I want to introduce our sponsor from Prudential, Ebony Ward, Process Management Specialist.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ebony Ward, and I'm an associate manager in a fulfillment organization at Prudential. Our organization is a financial institution where we fulfill our promises to all our customers and make lives better by solving the financial challenges of our ever-changing world. I'm here today to introduce to you Deborah Kolsovsky, who will be speaking from the topic of Take Control of Your Financial Life. Deborah Kolsovsky is a regional managing director with PNC Institutional Asset Management, leading teams of experienced sales and investment professionals. Deborah's team members are responsible for providing innovative and effective asset management solutions, including investment policy development and consultation, strategic asset allocation and implementation, participant education for defined contribution plans, and ongoing client service. Deborah has been with the firm since 1990 and has extensive investment banking and management experience. Deborah is very active in the community, having served as a board member and volunteer for various healthcare, higher education, economic, and nonprofit organizations, and currently serves as a board chair of the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce. Deborah holds a bachelor's degree of the University of Scranton. Please join me in welcoming Deborah to the stage.
Thank you. Oh, I don't need that. I'm going to use, am I live? Oh, I'm live, cool. Oh, there you go. Huh? All right, my biggest stress so far is just making sure that this slide thing moves. And it doesn't. Oh, there it is. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today to talk about taking control of your financial life. Today we're going to talk about the financial issues that women face and some ideas on how you could control them at various stages of your life. So I bet nobody would be surprised that when it comes to money, men and women are different, right? And some of it has to do with demographics, but other things have to actually do with our unique perspectives on investing. Yep, biggest stressor right here. Move the thing. I'll just wave to you every so often and you move it, okay? Just move it. Yeah, it's not working. All right. So everybody, let's take a minute to think about what's on your to-do list. What are your priorities? Like me, you probably feel that you have an endless list of things to do each and every day, right? So if you have children, it takes up a lot of your time. If you have a spouse or a partner, most of the time you want to spend some time with them. You might have, speaking for myself on that one, if you have parents that are aging, it actually takes more of your time. If you have a career, there's a lot of hours that we're all putting into it. And then, oh, by the way, if you have a home, You have to upkeep it, do the errands and everything else there. And then making time for friends and family. Oh, you want my cooker? Okay. But what's missing from that list that I went through? It's yourself, right? So how many here actually put yourself as a priority when you were thinking about all the things to do? Maybe a zero show of hands. So what today is going to be out is really making yourself a priority first with your finances. So can we move to the next slide? And just keep hitting the button there. I'll wing this here. So there's various stages in our lives. And if you could imagine, when it comes to both men and women, we all have the same obstacles. Balancing your life goals. Oh, it works now? Cool. Balancing your life goals, making sure that you are investing well enough to maximize growth with minimal risk, and then making sure that you have enough income left when you need to retire, right? But the challenges with women are different. They're different because, good for us, we actually live longer than men do. But we also have different views on investing. And quite honestly, we also have dual roles where we're caregivers as well as earners. So it's important to take time to address your financial needs. So think about this as an analogy. If you were all in an airplane right now, right, and they're giving the announcement, if the oxygen mask comes down, you put the mask on yourself first before you put it on anywhere else, right? Because if you don't take care of your own finances first, it's going to be really hard to take care of anybody else. And don't depend, if you have a spouse or a partner, that they're actually doing the planning to take care of you as well. So this is why it is really important to take care of yourself here. So there's different stages in a woman's life. As you might be surprised, they all don't go in sequence. Sometimes they overlap, and many times they compete with each other. So let's talk a little bit about the different stages. Your first job. And I would say, many people in the room here, I don't know if you're actually at your first job, but please take this if you have a daughter at home, a niece, a mentor, because it's really, really important for everybody. But your first job is when you could actually start investing. As your career advances, then you could look at how can I be more selective in what I do. If marriage and family come along, all of those goals multiply in that piece of it. Midlife, which I'm going to be happy to talk about in a little bit. Midlife is where a lot of individuals are dealing with both children and parents in that area. And then lastly, retirement, where you want to make sure that you're at a spot where you have enough income to take care of all of your needs, as well as your health care needs. Now, if I didn't scare you enough yet, the good news is, right, this is very easy to do as long as you put a plan in place. Okay, we're going to try it again now. Whew, I'm excited. So let's talk about your first job. Oh, see, I got so excited, I went to the next one. So when it's your first job, and this is real quick, it's really not too soon to start investing. You don't think that you have enough money to do it, but you also really, it's probably the best time when you don't have all of the other expenses that are coming as you get older in life. So it really is imperative, because I'm going to keep going back to this today because women live longer than men, that it's really imperative to start sooner, especially at your first job, to start investing. Can't get that point across enough, right? On average, women live longer than men. And actually, a survey is that Americans living into their 90s, women outnumber men 3 times to 1. So the other piece of it, which was interesting, I was looking at this, and I probably knew it but didn't realize it, that women have a tendency to marry older men. So there are actually more of them are widowers than not. So again, when you take a look at this, it's really essential to start to plan to have a bigger nest egg when you retire. I love this slide. This talks about the power of compounding. And if there's nothing else that you take away to take to a younger person today, this is an example, both Isabel and Susan. Isabel started working at 25. She worked for 10 years. She puts away $5,000 a year, earning 5%. At 35, Isabel decided to leave the workforce, and she's going to raise children. And then at 65, take her retirement. Susan, on the other hand, was working but didn't start to invest until she was 45. She worked for 20 years, investing the same amount of money as Isabel at the same rate. At 65, Isabel has $100,000 more money than Susan does at that point in time. So if you haven't started to put away for your future, now's the time. And it doesn't need to be a lot. If you're working for a firm, this is one of the other things just to hit quickly. Pay yourself first. So if you have a firm that has a 401k plan that has a match, utilize the match. You could see here again, just from the chart, $500 a month, 6% return, taking advantage of the match or not taking advantage of the match, the difference in the amount of money that you'll have at retirement. So now we move to stage 2. Our careers are advancing. We're making more money. So what's important now is actually to start to be more specific about where you want to put your money. Take a closer look at your portfolio. How is it allocated? What you need is enough exposure to growth assets to make sure that, again, you're going to live a long time in retirement, that there's enough assets to support you. One of the unique things about women is we're more conservative. And we're more conservative from an investment perspective as well. So raise your hand here if you're investing for retirement. Oh, you guys are pretty good. I guess that's why you came to the financial section, huh? But typically, only 77% of women are participating in a retirement plan. So I'll give you a second question. How many people feel that you have enough invested in long-term growth assets to sufficiently reach your goals? All right, comes the guy in the room, yeah, because you invest better than we do. But the reason being is we're actually more conservative than men in terms of our investing. So when you think about it, it actually kind of counteracts. We're more conservative investing. We need the money to go longer because we're going to live longer and the money might not be there. When you're, and this is just something again to point out, it's really interesting that, oh, I'll pass it off again. I gotta get AV lessons soon. But so as you're advancing in your career, if you're getting promoted, if you're getting bonuses, if you're getting raises, the most important thing to do is keep putting more money away. You're never gonna miss it, right? And if you just put that incremental amount away every time you get an increase, you could see again the difference in how it's going to compound over time. This is over 30 years, but it makes a big difference. In talking about what to invest in, I'm just going to hit this quickly. So these are all of the different ways that you can invest. As we talk about, women are more conservative, so they lean a little bit more down the scale. And it really is important to have that good mix of growth investments in your portfolio. We're actually at a great time right now because interest rates are no longer zero. So you could actually back off a little bit from an equity perspective and have some more money in maybe slightly conservative investments. But the most important thing here is you want to actually have the right allocation mix in your portfolio. You don't want to chase something on the high end or be too conservative on the low end, but it's really having the right mix to be able to get where you need to be. All right, now we come to the fun stuff, marriage and family, right? All of these priorities start competing, right? Your day-to-day expenses now, I've been there, right, can be overwhelming. And it's really important, even with this, not to back off and stop investing for yourself or investing for college if you believe and you want your children to go to college. It is it's really interesting, and I'll get to the one slide here, but we have a gap in confidence in terms of how we're going to invest. So raise your hand if you feel confident that you're going to have enough money to comfortably retire. Okay, few people, right? You're all the minority in the room, right? Over a third of women are feeling not too confident or not confident at all that they're going to have enough money to retire, which actually is different than men. Only 0.25% of men feel that they don't have enough money to retire. So this almost becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not confident in investing. I invest too conservatively. Guess what? I don't have enough money to retire. So, okay, we made it true. This was the slide that gave me heartburn when I was looking at it. So everything that's going on, right? A lot of competing priorities when you're raising a family. Cost almost $234,000 to raise a child to 17. And that's not even putting them in college. That's just paying for all the stuff and raising them, right? If you have 2 children, it could take 41% of your household income to support your children, right? So even with that, there's some action steps that you could do to be smart about it. If you have credit cards, especially now with rates going up, try to get them down, right? Control your spending as best as possible. Be disciplined. Still invest for college. Contribute to that 401k employee sponsored plan, and maybe life insurance. My son is 20, now he's a sophomore in college. But as he was growing up, when I talk about what I worried most about, was that if something did happen to me, if I bucked the trend and I didn't live as long as I'm supposed to, right? Was there gonna be enough for him to live, not an extraordinary lifestyle, but just one that he was accustomed to, and be able to continue to go to school. So I made it a point, even when I first started working, to start putting money away. The day that he was born, I started to put money away for his college. And then when I was able to put more in every month, I did. But, you know, knock on metal, you know, it's put him in a spot that he's not gonna have to leave with a lot of debt at the moment because of that planning piece of it. I'm gonna skip a couple of these because we started a little bit late, so. All right, I mentioned this in the beginning. This is probably one of my favorite of the stages of women's life, midlife. During midlife, it's a combination of supporting children and maybe having aging parents. I'm sitting smack dab in that right now. A 20-year-old son and a 93-year-old father. What this is referred to, that's what I'm gonna call myself anymore, it's called the sandwich generation. And this is a time when you're actually supposed to be, as a woman, thinking about how you plan for your retirement, right? But it could seem overwhelming and impossible because you have all of these other demands on your time. It is possible, though, again, if you continue to stay disciplined, if you continue to plan, and you actually prioritize yourself first. Not surprising, right? As I share some facts here. Again, show of hands, I like the interactive part of it. How many, well, let's see how many are in the sandwich generation. How many have children living at home? Keep your hands up. How many have older children you're still taking care of? Kathy. And how many of you have at least one living parent over 65? Welcome to my world. You're the sandwich generation. But seriously, what's really important about this is that with all that going on and the fact that you want to care for someone else, right? You have to care about yourself first. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to do all of the other things that are out there. I'm just going to skip through that one. We're not going to go into detail on milestones, but I guess the takeaway here, depending upon what age you're at, as you're in this midlife stage, if you feel that you're in the midlife stage, now's the time to really start thinking more concretely about retirement, but all of those key milestones. If age 50, if you haven't put enough away that you could catch up. And then just knowing when you could access your funds, when you could get Social Security, when you could typically retire or if you'd want to retire before then, and when you have to start taking your required minimum distributions. The slide's a little old, that number's changing to age 73 versus 72, but what's another year? So here's my takeaway for today, right? If nothing else from our conversation today, this would be one great takeaway. Now at this time, if you feel that you're in the midlife stage, start calculating where you think you're gonna be for your retirement funding gap, and if you're gonna have one, right? So you wanna add up all of your sources of retirement income, your pensions, Social Security benefits, what they will be, 401k, IRA, whatever you might have, right? And any other investments that you have out there. And then look at your expenses. Look at your essential expenses, which is your house, your groceries, that part of it. And then your discretionary, because we still want to travel and have a good time, so travel and recreation. Here's the key. If the income category is less than the expense category, that's the trigger to go sit down with an advisor and just talk about what you could start doing now to close the gap. It's not too late. It can still be done, but inaction won't get you there. We'll skip through that one. It was depressing. It was about divorces and stuff like that, so we're gonna, didn't really want to cover it at all. So the final stage in a woman's life is retirement. While it might be the final stage, it's actually the longest stage, as we've talked about, right? That our lifespan when we retire is going to be considerably longer than probably our male counterparts. And we want to make sure that we have the right amount of income to be able to meet all of the needs that we have. One thing everybody worries about, right? So I'm in the investment business, right? Everybody's looking at what the market's doing. Stock market goes up and down, worrying about the volatility in the stock market. I will tell you from this perspective in retirement, what's more troublesome than the market going up and down is the purchasing power of what inflation's going to do, right? So what, right? So what about this is that means if you do invest appropriately, you take some of that longer term growth investments on the equity side, don't worry about the ups and downs in the marketplace. Quite honestly, there's nothing you could do about it. And, but you don't want to stress about it either. And you don't want it to cause you to be too conservative, because then you will go back to that self-fulfilling prophecy that I was conservative, I didn't worry about the market going up and down, but oh, by the way, now I'm 67 years old and I might run out of money. This one, and again, from personal experience, I've kind of seen this piece of it in taking care of my dad, is that when it comes to what you need in retirement, your normal income doesn't take care of your major healthcare needs, right? You have your insurance to cover going to the doctor and everything, but personal care, nursing homes, et cetera, a lot of them are out of your own pocket. And I found this depressing as I'm getting closer to 65, but the percentage of people over 65 that are going to require some sort of longer term care, almost 70%. So it's a reality, right? And the average cost of home health care, this was actually from 2020. So this is before all of the increases and changes that have been happening over the couple of years. But at a minimum, $55,000 for home health care, right? So it's important, right? And what you want to think about at this stage too is, do you want to spend your income, your retirement income, to support this piece of it? Or does it make sense to sit and talk to somebody along the way regarding long-term health insurance? Sometimes you try to avoid it because you say, if I avoid it, I think it's going to happen, right? But for 70% of us, it might happen. So again, it's good to think about that. So hopefully I haven't depressed anybody during the course of the day today. But it really is about starting financial conversations, putting yourself first, right? So think about this. Think about a few questions you want to ask yourself. Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? In the next 20 years, right? When you think about the future, what are you worrying about? I know there's a lot to worry about right now, but again, as you're thinking about your future, what might you be worrying about? I think about this one every day. How long do you want to work? Just turned 55, so I'm excited about that. But seriously, how long do you want to work? When do you want to retire? How long is that going to be, and to plan for that part of it? Are you going to need to continue to support your children, even when they're younger or when they're out of the house? And are you going to need to be there for your parents because they may not have the resources to take care of themselves and the expenses that are there? And then lastly, think about what's the perfect retirement look like for you? The perfect retirement if you could have it. With all of this, that's when you want to sit down and talk to somebody about what your goals are, what everything looks like. And if you don't already have the plan in place, start putting it in place on how to get there. Even though you think that the list of everything that you have to do is long on a given day, today you were able to take time out of your lives to come here, spend time and listen to some individuals. So I think the important thing that I'd love you all to take away from this morning is make that time. Make yourself a priority. The facts and the figures don't lie, so you really can't escape this stuff. Winning the lottery is an option, but it doesn't always work, right? So seriously, just take some time for yourself. Make yourself the priority, and live a nice, long, happy retirement. Thank you. All right, I'm ready for questions. Don't make them too hard.
Do we have any questions in the room before we go to the questions that we do have on the app? Yes?
How do you feel about investing in cryptocurrency?
I don't, I'll give you my personal opinion, right? Not my organization's opinion, but I think it's just too risky. I've come from an industry that it's stick with the basics. So personally, I don't invest in crypto.
Yeah.
There's a lot of financial advisors out there. How do you go about finding the right one?
Well, I would say a couple things. Do some research, right? To make sure that it's somebody that is credible, trustworthy. Best thing to do sometimes is word of mouth and referrals, asking others who they might be using, and also quite honestly talking to a couple people the first time. You don't necessarily have to go to the first person that you meet. So almost like dating. You know, look at a couple, figuring out which one's going to be the right person for you.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Deb? All right, I'm going to give you some that we got from the app, if that's
ready.
okay. All right.
Ready.
How much liquid cash do you advise to keep on hand at any given time?
I've always said, and personally I've done it, at least 6 months of my salary, just in case something bad happens. If you lose your job and you need to just support your normal lifestyle, or those other things that could just pop up. We've been in our house for 20-some years now. Amazing how the refrigerator, the washing machine, and the dryer all went within the same week. So having at least 6 months, I think, is a good starting point.
Okay. Another one we got here, and I think you talked a lot about this because you gave us a lot of great material, but the number one, I guess what you would say the best way to get started, your number one kind of starting point for someone that really is just starting to look into this.
If you're just starting to look into it, figure out what the littlest amount you could have left, that you're not going to miss it if you go out or anything else, and start putting that money away, even if it's a small amount, and then every year continue to add to it.
Okay. We have one more here. What's the better choice at this time, a second mortgage or a home equity loan?
Well, I might have to phone a friend on that one. I have, so again, I'll speak for my own personal part, not necessarily our organization. I would say a home equity, and the reason being it's just a difference in costs, right? If you get a home equity, the upfront costs are not as much as if you were getting a second mortgage. With the home equity, it is interest only, so you could actually manage your payments a little bit more. It does require some discipline. One of the things that we did over time is I had a home equity to do some work on our house, but I made myself disciplined to make the payment like I was making a mortgage payment. So if I didn't have enough in one given month, I could cut back, but I made sure that I was putting it on there so it wasn't at the end of it, I'm like, oh man, I paid all this interest and I still got a lot more to pay.
Awesome. We have about 2 more minutes. Does anybody else have any questions in the audience? Okay. Well, Deb, thank you so much. I think wonderful session. This was
Thanks,
a great overview. We thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
And now you guys can feel free to network a bit in the vendor room, and then we'll be back in here, obviously, at 11 o'clock, too, for our next session.